Hello everyone and welcome back to Ruby Lessons in Codecademy. So in the last lesson we were creating a project which was making a histogram, and for that we used arrays or hashes, which are like dictionaries as I've said before. To do that we also used iteration to be able to make it work more efficiently. So today we're starting a new section or a new topic which is called methods, blocks and sorting. So what are methods? A method is a reusable section of code written to perform a specific task in a program. I guess they're gonna call them methods in Ruby. I would normally call them functions when they're written like this. I would normally call something a method if it's a part of an object. So, as point 3 covers here, we will be learning about objects later on. So, that's more of a method. So if you have something like string.length to find the length of a string, then I would call this a method, but I wouldn't call it a method if it's a standalone thing, the standalone section of code, if it's not part of an object. But I guess for Codecademy's sake, they're going to be calling it a method. So you might hear me using them interchangeably for now. So you might be wondering why you need to separate your code into methods rather than just writing everything out in one big chunk. Turns out there are a few good reasons to divide your program into methods. So number one, if something goes wrong in your code, it's much easier to find and fix bugs if you organize your program well. So kind of like convention. Assigning specific tasks to separate methods helps with this organization. So the same reason why you leave indentation, one of the reasons to do methods is just because it's much easier and much neater. It looks much nicer by using indentation than if you didn't. Just the same way it is with methods or functions. Number two, by assigning specific tasks to separate methods, or an idea computer scientists call separation of concerns, you make your program less redundant. So you want to make it if you have a program, you want to make it the least redundant as possible, so that your code is more reusable, and not only can you repeatedly use the same method in a single program without rewriting it each time, but you can even use that method in another program, which is really nice. And that also saves efficiency for the program, because instead of having to read this new section of code, it already knows where to find this method, so it can just go back on it and knows how to use it. Kind of, if we want to do it into simple ways. And then number three, as I mentioned before, when we learn more about objects, you'll find out there are a lot of interesting things you can do with methods in Ruby. So those will come later on. We're not even 50% through the course yet, but I will tell you, objects are quite fun. So instructions, check out the method we've written in the editor. Can you guess what it will do? Click Save and Submit Code when you think you know. So prime, I can already guess, it just finds whether a number is prime or not. So puts that's not an integer unless n is an integer. So if the input is an integer, then it's going to do all of this. If it isn't an integer, it's just going to put that's not an integer. And if it isn't an integer, then it's going to put that and end straight away, because this is in an unless. Notice that. So if it is an integer, then let's see what happens. Let's use 2 as an example. So is prime? We're assuming that it is prime at first. So for I in the list of 2 to n minus 1, where n is our prime number, so from 2 until n minus 1, which in this case is going to be 1. So this isn't actually going to be a run for the number 2, but okay, what would happen if it was 9? So that would be 2 till 8. If n is evenly divisible by I, so that's what this means, as we learned about the modulo. If we do n modulo I equals 0, that means evenly divisible by I. If n is evenly divisible by I, then is prime equals false, because there's obviously another number that you can divide 9 by to get a different number, which means that it's not a prime number. You can divide it by another number which isn't 9 or 1. because you can divide it by 3. So 9 would return is not a prime. And it would end there. So if it is prime, then it returns this, and if it isn't prime, it returns this. So maybe the output that this method returns is not very useful for everyday programming, because what you would normally want to return in such a function or in such a method is true or false. So if it was prime, you would probably want to return true or return false. So every time you run it, it's going to give you an output of true or false. Because in this case, if this is all you want, then that's fine. But if you want it to be a part of a bigger project or a program, then you want to be using booleans instead of strings as return. So if it doesn't make sense, don't worry too much, because, well, we're not going to be working on this for now. And if all you want to do is just get through the course on Codecademy, then we can just move on. So let's learn more about how to write methods. And this is where we're actually going to explain more about methods, so that's why we don't need to worry about the first task that much. So methods are defined using the keyword def, which is shorthand for defined. Methods have 3 parts. So we have the header, which includes the def keyword, the name of the method, and any arguments the method takes. So we'll get to arguments in the next section, okay, fair enough. Then we have the body, so the main bit of the method, which is the code block that describes the procedures the method carries out. The body is indented 2 spaces by convention, as with for, if, else if, and else statements. So, okay, let's just finish this off and I'll give you an example of that might be more relatable. The method ends with the end keyword. So, like most things do. Here's an example of what the syntax would look like for a simple function, welcome, that just prints welcome to Ruby to the console. So you do define welcome, where welcome is the name, and puts welcome to Ruby, and end. So if you wanted to call this function, then all you would have to do is welcome with parentheses after it, so like that. So if you do maths at school, or if you've learned about it, then think of a method as a function. So you have f of x equals, I don't know, x squared plus 3x plus 5. It's just an example. This doesn't have much to do with Ruby, but if you think of it as this, x is the input, and then you're calling it f, so the header is going to be f, the name of the function is f, the body is going to be this part, so what you're doing to the input, and the output is going to be f of x, so the whole thing is going to give you an output. So if you put 2 here, then you would do 2 to the power of 2, so that's 4, plus 6, plus 5. 4 plus 6, 10, plus 5, 15. So that's going to be your output. If you think of a method as something like that, then it should make more sense to you. So let's see what our instructions are, so how to finish this task. We started a method in the editor to the right, but it's incomplete. Replace the underlines with the correct keyword so the method will work. So what does it need to be doing? Puts 1 to 10. Okay, so that's define. That's the name of our function. So for every number from 1 to 10, it's going to put I and end. Okay, so that wasn't anything complicated. All the function does is prints all the numbers 1 till 10. And then it calls, so this is just a call to the function. Otherwise, if you don't call the function, nothing's going to happen. Even though it says ignore this for now, we'll explain it soon. I've explained it. So create your own. So let's do it ourselves then. We are definitely going to have define or def. So now it's time to build your own method. Remember, the syntax looks like that. So define, method name, do something, the body, end. And we're definitely going to have end there. Good. Create a method, greeting, so that's going to be our name. In the editor, it should use puts to print a greeting to the console. Oh, that's quite simple. Puts, this is my good greeting to you, kind, and then we can have sir slash madam. Why not? There we go. Okay, so we have put the body in, that's fine, and then greeting is going to call the method. Good. We get what we expected to the console as the output. So that's all good. So, and we can move on. Call it. So this is where it's going to explain how the calling works. Defining a method is great, but it's not much use unless you call it or execute it, whatever you want to say. So for example, if you call a method called cartoonfox, Ruby will start looking for the method with that name and try to execute the code inside it. So for example, if you install a program such as, I don't know, Mozilla Firefox to your computer, it's good that you have it, but to use it you have to double click it or right click open. Otherwise it's no good to you, you can't use it. So that's basically what calling is in programming. So if Ruby doesn't find the method called cartoonfox, it will return a name error. So we'll cover errors in another lesson. There are good ways of getting around errors as well, in case you don't want to end the program when there's an error. So you call a method just by typing its name, as we have previously seen. Remember when you saw us type puts 1 to 10 or greeting after our method definition in the last two exercises? So that was us calling our methods, or executing the methods, or double clicking Mozilla Firefox. Instructions. We've set up a function array of 10 in the editor to the right. Call it on line 5. Quite simple. Array of 10. And that's going to call the function. So also another way of maybe thinking about it is you have an integer, which is going to be my integer, called 5. Well, you have this integer, but you're not using it. To use it, or to see what it is, you have to do puts my integer. Otherwise, it's useless to you if this is all you have. It's better not to even have it if you're not using it, because it's just wasting memory. And as you can see, we called the method. So what happens if we don't have this line? As you will see, nothing will happen. So nothing happens. We haven't called it, we haven't opened it, we haven't used it for any reason. It's better not to even have this code if you don't have this line, or if you don't implement it into another bit of your code. So we save and submit here, everything is fine. And as I've said many times before, ignore the very last line, because that's just how Codecademy works. It adds something on. So that's going to be it for this lesson. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and subscribe. If you didn't, you know what to do. Click the dislike button, tell me how I can improve for next time. But until that next time, thanks so much for watching and goodbye.